Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're all well. We were just waiting until we had everyone in the room. So welcome, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us okay. Just wanted to say, hope you're all well and have had a nice weekend. Thanks very much for joining us and welcome to part 2 of our Light Lunch series. These are talks on all things light and lighting. We shall be doing them every Tuesday and Friday and would love to have you here again for Kale and Emilio's talk on Friday, titled The Rules Are Meant to Be Broken. Do sign up via the blog and our website if you haven't already done so. Also, can I just say it's really, really heartening and really lovely to have people from all around the globe on here. So welcome, everyone.
Yeah, we've got
I'm
people from
Seraphina.
everywhere. Sorry.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
It's amazing.
Got, every continent. This is so nice. My name's Seraphina, and I'm presenting today with Sophie. We are friends and fellow culture vultures from Nulty.
Hey everyone, Sophie here. Seraphina and I are artists as much as we are designers, and we're hoping that we can inspire you all to marry these disciplines together in your work, and just to pick up a pen and have some fun sketching. We first presented this talk about a month ago at the Surface Design Show as part of their Light School. It honestly feels like a decade ago. I can't believe so much has happened in just a month. This talk is fairly new, so we're keen to develop it further. So any burning questions or comments, please speak up in the chat to the side of the screen. The lovely Paul is going to be moderating. He'll be answering questions and collecting any questions to ask us, so feel free to get chatting.
Hello, everyone.
Lovely.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul. So we're going to start with a short discussion about why drawing light is so important to us designers before moving into the role of light in contemporary immersive shows and performances within the world of design. We thought it'd be fun to end our talk by putting practice to paper in the form of a mini drawing workshop. So make sure you have pen and paper handy. Afterwards, we'd love to see your handiwork, so please feel free to post on Instagram and tag us. We'll be providing socials and hashtags at the end of the presentation, so stick around. On to Seraphina.
Okie doke. So we're just going to turn our cameras off for a little bit because we don't want to distract you from the beautiful art we're going to have up on screen. There we go. Okie doke. Okay, so drawing light is a bit like drawing time. It's an intangible, ephemeral entity, and quantifying light onto paper almost negates it, because it renders it as a shadow, pun fully intended, of its former self. Like time, light exists to make sense of our surroundings. It is a vessel for our senses to understand the physical world and appreciate its beauty. Lighting design uses light as a tool to reveal the beauty within a space, establishing visual hierarchies and focal points to guide one's eye. Now, lighting design is a fairly recent entrant in the world of construction design at large, but for centuries, masters of light like Joaquin Sorolla, seen here is the mending of the sails, or seen here Claude Monet, this is his Houses of Parliament. They've been doing the work we do now, except on two-dimensional canvas rather than within a three-dimensional space. It is for this reason that drawing light is so important for us lighting designers. We are artists as much as we are technicians and engineers. We draw our proverbial ancestry directly from the masters of light. Our work begins with strokes of brush on a paper, ending with beams of light within a space. Light has been inextricably woven in with art. Through the centuries, various artists have sought to control it, be it the dramatic chiaroscuro of Caravaggio, seen here is the Calling of St. Matthew, or alternatively, Jackson Pollock's deceptively mindless flicks of paint. Light makes art, art. James Turrell puts it beautifully when he says, light is not so much something that reveals as it is itself the revelation. Most successful works of art use light not as a medium to convey a narrative, but as a living, breathing subject to be rendered into reality, much as one would the expression on a person's face or a specific moment in time. Now, it would be criminal to have a talk about drawing light without going back to 23rd April 1490, a day upon which Leonardo da Vinci began writing his book, simply titled Of Shadow and Light. It is painstakingly scientific in its pursuit of defining light and shadow, with great emphasis laid on optics and geometry. But even in his guise as a scientist, da Vinci is poetic in his definition of light, calling the act of light hitting a surface percussion, thus endowing it with dynamism. He further describes light as one of the spiritual powers, in which spiritual has the Aristotelian meaning of immaterial or imperceptible, now understood to be energy without mass. Even the greatest mind, perhaps, of the past millennium then falls prey to defining light through the definition of the shadow, which seems almost unfair. In doing so, da Vinci raises a question that would go on to plague the best of artists. If all that can be rendered on paper is a shadow, how can we draw light? Well, we lighting designers who don't stop at two-dimensional paper and canvas are privileged to be able to answer this question. We draw light by taking it to the third dimension, into space. Just as light makes art art, lighting design makes architecture architecture. What begins as shadows on paper, we translate into masses and voids. Drawing light and designing with it are two sides of the same coin. They enrich one another and, used hand in hand, help to answer a question that even da Vinci struggled with. Right, over to you, Sophie, going into modernity.
Thanks, Seraphina. So, bringing it forward to present day, light's new role in contemporary art is becoming broader. Stepping into the third dimension, it has become increasingly more experiential, becoming a moment in time that connects the user to a place, person, or concept. The canvas for the artist has expanded into architecture and nature. It inhabits places that we ourselves inhabit. It is designed to be lived in or moved amongst. Not dissimilar to what Seraphina mentioned, artists have been using light to tell stories for years. However, with advancements in technology have come the artist's ability to tell more complex stories through and with light. We can control light like we never could before. We have complex control systems, programming, pieces of interactive hardware and software. We can control color, intensity, frequency, and darkness, all from a machine. Collectives like Japan's famous Team Lab, as shown here, are champions of using complex programming and projection to create these completely artificial worlds designed to explore new relationships between people and nature free from any physical boundaries. Without boundaries or borders, unique and new concepts and discussions can be formed. As can be seen in their artworks, they use real-time programming to create visual representations of a person's interaction, and two people's visuals can then combine, merge, and interact with each other. This builds a non-verbal narrative between two or more people. The larger, more complex discussions, such as topics of politics or climate change, are discussions that we perhaps struggle to have due to the difficulty in communicating them. These breakdowns in communication can be so varied. It can be something as simple as physically not speaking the same language, or it can be something more complex, like the inability to comprehensively understand one another due to cultural or biological differences such as gender, race, sexuality, or class. We are so connected to light that we are biologically designed to be affected by it. It is one of the elements that drives our circadian rhythms. The medium of light is so nearly universally experienced that I think it has the inherent ability to be a tool for communication. Drag performer Sasha Velour uses light and projection in her performances. She talks about finding comfort and inspiration in form and geometry, as shapes are less bound by societal influences and constructs that we as people experience. Similarly, I would suggest that light, perhaps in a state when removed from any connotations of color, is less bound by things like gender. It can therefore be used as a powerful tool for storytelling to connect with a more diverse audience. At last year's PLDC in Rotterdam, we listened to a talk by Dutch artist Dan Roosegaard, in which he said that without meaning and without empathy, there is no connection. And without connection, how can we expect people to care? He told us about this lovely story about his project, Smog Free, which is in the picture here. It's a tower he's designed to filter polluted air and expel clean air. He was telling us about one they installed in a park in Poland, as seen here. They went there one day and they saw these little dogs gathering around the base of it. And they sort of went, why are these dogs here? What are they doing? They're standing very close, and they kept trying to figure it out. They mulled it over and they came to the conclusion that due to a dog's heightened sense of smell, they were just collecting near the tower because they could smell the clean air and they just wanted to be close to it. Now, I never found that tower like ugly at all, but after that story, I just found it so incredibly beautiful. And I think that's the power of stories. Dan Rusgaard also uses light in his work. I'm sure many of you saw his piece Waterlicht, which is this one here, that was installed in King's Cross a couple of years ago. He uses blue lasers and smoke to make it appear as if you're underwater due to climate change affected rising sea levels, which is a very real threat to them, as a third of the Netherlands lies below sea level. It was a very powerful way to show people the potential real effects of our climate crisis in a very sensory, physical way that I think was very memorable. The communication, however, does not have to be limited to the physical experience of art. Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson's work, The Weather Project, as seen here, was part of a much larger undertaking that involved raising the subject of the weather, running a questionnaire, publishing results in a catalogue to accompany the exhibition. There was also a roundtable discussion and a series of essays published, all in the interest of having a deeper, ongoing discussion that was too complex to have in one singular interaction. As technologies and the ability of light continues to develop, I'm personally curious to see where light art will end up, and how we can increase the effectiveness of our communication. Now back to Sarah.
Thank you, Sophie. I hope everyone's enjoyed our very brief, very short journey through antiquity and modernity. Just before we get to the last and potentially most fun bit of this talk, we'd like to run you through a few salient features of drawing light that we have gleaned through our own practice as artists. Right. So the first one, I'm going to title this Object versus Surface. Now, light doesn't exist in a single dimension, at least not in the world of art. Without a surface, there is no light, and without light, there is no object. Drawing a surface is easy. After all, the eye sees in 2 dimensions, stacked one behind the other, due to our binocular vision. Drawing a surface is something we mastered as cave dwellers. On the other hand, drawing in dimensions we can't actually behold with merely our eyes is difficult, for we are attempting to render visually an object that should be read with more than just one sense, that of vision and touch. Now, this is where light comes in, bestowing the object with a mantle of authenticity that our eyes need in order to understand the 3 dimensions as real. Sophie, would you like to talk about the inequality of shadows?
I would indeed. Thank you very much, Seraphina. So, the inequality of shadows. A shadow is defined within the world of physics as an absence of light. In the world of art, the definition isn't quite so simple. The success of a work of art is dependent on how the artist renders the play of shadows cast. Not only is it important to distinguish between a cast shadow and a formed shadow, but also to differentiate between a warm shadow and a cool one. The color of a shadow is largely independent of the color of the light that casts it, complicating matters further. A general rule of thumb that I like to follow is cool light, warm shadow, warm light, cool shadow. But this is only true if both object and surface are a neutral white color. Experimenting with your source of light, color of object, and color of casting surface is key to making things real. Sarah, would you like to chat about daylight and diffused light?
Indeed.
Lovely.
So, multiple light sources, or a distant light source like the sun, flatten the sense of volume in 3-dimensional objects due to the lack of drama that a point source can provide. They can be most challenging to work with, but also produce the most realism in a work of art. Painting colours in flat areas to suit a diffused source of light relies upon value and hue rather than shadow and shade in order to establish visual hierarchies and make compositions seem real. A bit of artistic liberty, and by that I do mean exaggerating the sun's influence or pretending that your diffuse source is in fact directional, when layering values and hues can go a long way in rendering light correctly. Seen here is a circle, just a red circle starting to become a sphere. This wouldn't have been possible if you had multiple light sources hitting that sphere equally all in one go. But a point source really drives home the fact that the third little red sphere that you see is an actual sphere. Right, now we're going to play a little video for you guys to demonstrate a few really clever and easy sketching techniques. Do grab your pens and paper and follow along. The video will be up on YouTube, however, together with our presentation, so you can always go back and watch. As always, do chat to us, send in your questions that I'm sure Paul is collating, so that at the end of this we can have a little discussion on how to draw light. Bear with me just one moment. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see what's going on. So hatching is one of my favourite techniques for drawing. However, as you can see with this little video, it's quite difficult to draw a sphere with hatching alone, simply because you're drawing again in a single dimension. So with all of your strokes going in a unified direction and your lines not crossing over, it can be quite challenging. Over to our second technique, which is a little bit easy, easier at least as compared to unidirectional hatching, is when you start adding in lines that sort of flow in various directions, helping to really accentuate that curve that the sphere has. As you can see, never forget to draw your shadow underneath your sphere. With random lines, I think this is my favourite technique for sketching during a meeting.
Mine too.
Really, really quick. And it's so nice in terms of sort of getting your point across in a really, really quick way.
You don't even need to lift your pen off the paper. It's so quick and easy. It doesn't even have to look good. It can just be sort of nice and quick and sketchy.
And that, I think that Sophie sort of hit the nail on the head here with that. You know, sketching doesn't have to be beautiful. Drawing light doesn't have to be visually beautiful, as long as it can convey a really beautiful story. That's the conveyance of a narrative is really what art is all about.
Yeah.
So as long as you can put your point across, you know, any of these techniques are absolutely perfect. Right. Well, that's the end of our little video. We're gonna turn our own cameras on so you can see us again.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Another tip, by the way, if you're sketching and you want to find a really nice shadow, talking about that point source, if you just grab your phones and turn them on, that little LED there is just a single point source. So it'll give you such a crisp, good shadow, so you can really draw some dramatic objects.
Yes, drama is something that Sophie and I very much love in our own lives, and certainly when it comes to art.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, Paul, I was wondering if you had any questions that you've gathered.
Well, thank you, ladies. Yes. So a couple of things came into me. Firstly, what is the importance and the difference in the requirement for drawing versus sort of using electronic or digital media? How do those challenges come across to you, and you know, how do you get around them as well? And what is the importance of digital media in sketching?
So for me, you know, you can't, oftentimes I see people sort of pitting these against one another. And I personally, I find that very odd, because I think, you know, Photoshop or, you know, other means of digital sketching need to be used hand in hand with hand sketching. The immediacy of being able to render a thought in your mind on paper using just a pen or a pencil, that cannot, unfortunately, be beaten by something like Photoshop, because you do have to spend a little bit of time on it. So for me, it's a bit like, you know, the satisfaction that you get from watching a movie versus acting in a play. With a play, it's an immediate satisfaction, where it's, you know, a play for me is like sketching, where you get an applause from the audience right at the end of your show, whereas with a movie you have to go through all of this, you know, a good painful 6 months until you can actually get something onto screen. And that for me is the difference between analog and digital. It's that immediacy of satisfaction, and of getting your thoughts onto a medium. But they're both equally valid, in my opinion. And for lighting designers especially, you know, Photoshop gives you the ability to sketch into a 3-dimensional space, whereas with a hand-drawn object, most people would struggle with that. So you can't really use one or the other. For me, it's, you know, a good melange of the two is necessary.
And it's about using what you're comfortable with as well. If you're more comfortable in digital and it helps you brainstorm quicker, then, you know, use that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've worked with Christoph over at Studio Regret West, you know, a few times, and he actually sketches straight onto an iPad with not Photoshop, but a sketching piece of software, which is really interesting to watch and see how people are evolving, I guess. Juan here has asked or given a comment which says, you wouldn't believe how many young students of architecture, and I would also venture interior design as well, by the way, you know, cannot sketch, you know, outside of a computer. You know, number one, why do you think that's a dying art, and how do you think that we prevent that as a dying art?
I think, and this, you know, this stretches across to pretty much every sphere of our life now. We like perfection. You know, sketching, unfortunately, to me is, well, actually, no, not unfortunately to me. I quite like the fact that it's slightly imperfect, that it's slightly raw, it's natural and it's unfinished. But I was told, I mean, I graduated with my master's 3 years ago now, and I was constantly told, you know, leave your sketching in your sketchbooks, but when you present something to someone, make sure that it's a finished bit of work. And that finished bit of work is where people start using something like Photoshop or you know, Sketchpad to sort of make things look perfect. Perfection is what people aim for. I mean, this stretches to everything that we do now. You know, yeah, every sphere of our life, we just aim for that anti-raw perfection.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
There are a couple of interesting comments here. Probably my favourite question of the day from David Gilby. What's the importance of glitter in sketching? But let me just meld that with a question from Mary, or a comment from Mary as well. Is that she was a fan of stippling. So, you know, what is important beyond kind of just the written pencil or pen, or the drawn pencil or pen? You know, what is the importance of all of those other techniques, including glitter? And hey, why not?
Sophie, I think you're the glitter expert, but we're the two of us. So.
Glitter's very important, always. Why not? Add a bit of fun to it. But what was the initial question apart from the glitter? The importance of stippling.
Well, I guess also, you know, Mary picked up, you know, that she was a fan of stippling, and I guess that, you know, what is that importance of other techniques just beyond that kind of one pen, one line drawing? I mean, how important do you feel those traditional techniques are?
It's just about brainstorming, isn't it? About freeing your mind up. If you stick to the one thing and the one routine, and you just do the one thing your whole life, you don't you might try to think outside the box, but I think the easiest way to trick our mind into thinking outside the box is to doing different things in different ways. So even something as simple as sketching the same object in 4 different techniques can help us learn about that object more than we'd probably realize. So yeah, just variety, spice of life, isn't it?
You know, Valerie said here that you know, finished sketches can often cause questions, and you know, I'm guessing that she means also some problems as well when you spend a lot of time trying to sketch something. And in her experience, keeping it simple is better. What are your thoughts?
Well, it
depending
depends
on
on what stage of the project you're
Yeah.
at as well, more than anything. I mean, I'd hate to be pigeonholed during sort of the conceptual start of a project into producing something that's, you know, finished. I quite like that rawness at the very beginning where you're sort of mind mapping on paper and you're really letting your mind wander.
Yeah.
So, but it is important to buckle down at some point, which is why you know, the digital world then plays a big part in this buckling down. You never send off unfinished sort of sketches to a client. Normally, you do get rendered images out of your mind on paper, so to speak.
That's
I
just
don't know,
a
Sophie,
time.
how do you feel about this?
Well, I think it's just a time thing as well. At the beginning, you can do a 30-second sketch and that conveys the message you need to convey. You don't need any more time than that. But in the later stages, you can't do a 30-second render and send it off. That'd just be garbage. It'd be a box of white. You couldn't do it. So
which could make a great statement, but I don't think a client would appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an interesting comment here from Smith. He said that you know, that's why old school architects are still in a job, because they can work quicker and more efficiently. And I think
totally.
Yeah, for sure. It's a more creative process, isn't it? I mean, that's really what you're saying here.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, the as an industry, it is about blending, you know, those techniques. I've tried the iPad with a digital pen sort of technique, and it's okay, but it's very different. You know, it's not as tactile as beautiful. I just see somebody here asked, Tiziano asked, could we please see some of your sketches? Ladies, I suggest what we do is you have a blog post on our blog already on this topic. We will, when we upload this presentation to YouTube, and at the end of this presentation, we'll post the YouTube link for the last presentation, The Art of Light. Somebody asked that. And the next week, we'll then upload this presentation as well, or the end of this week, we will upload this presentation. We will add to that a link to the blog, and on there we will make sure that we add some of your sketches as well of light. So people are asking, you know, could they see some?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure you would. You know, would you mind sharing? We should ask you.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, no, this is
definitely
great to share. Yeah, stippling especially, Paul, is something that I think my Instagram is literally full of stippled images. So if anyone wants to go there and see the painstaking points that one has to go through in order to get stippled images together, you know, feel free, absolutely.
Ruby's asked, do you prefer hand sketching when coming up with lighting design studies and concepts?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy.
I personally do, absolutely. Okay. I'm more. Yeah, Sophie, I don't. You see, quite like the digital world, don't you?
Yeah, the funny thing is, when my degree is industrial design, and when I was doing ID, I definitely preferred hand sketching. But for lighting design, I actually prefer like browsing Pinterest for photos. I find the big like full-on visual like more stimulating for lighting than the hand sketching. But I still do use hand sketching every day to like communicate, even if it's just rough. Like here's a section detail of something. That stuff is always handy, but yeah, I don't actually use it for lighting.
Katia here has asked, do you prefer pencil and black pen sketches, so monochrome sketches, or do you prefer adding a sense of colour and light with colour, I suppose?
I never do colour. I never do colour. I don't know why.
I always do colour. I do colour all the time. It's the strangest thing. So a lot of people today are a little bit afraid of colour because colour can go out of season and out of fashion so quickly. But, you know, also when you add colour to a sketch, I think you start tying down your ideas to that colour. But with light, I think it's necessary to see how something would look against, you know, a coloured background. But yeah, I mean, during a meeting, I don't take along coloured pencils. You know, that would just be a black and white sketch. But given a choice, absolutely, colour all the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally don't use it.
Yeah. The answer there is inconclusive.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your presentation. There's been some really wonderful comments, you know, people thanking you and commenting. Seraphina, you plugged your Instagram account. It is worth looking at because I think it's a really interesting Instagram accounts. Sophie, I'm sure you have one. Obviously, we as Nulty Lighting have an Instagram account.
Yeah, I'll just bring that up now. We've actually got our socials.
Yes, so let's
here.
talk
Oops,
about
sorry.
hashtags, everybody.
There we go. So we have our socials up here.
Please, yes, tag us and use these hashtags and do your own sketches. We'd love to see them.
And we'll upload our sketches there as well, so you can see them there to the Drawing with Nulty hashtag.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. A huge thank you to everybody for joining.
Thank you so much.
Further questions that people have, please do get in touch. I'm sure both Seraphina and Sophie, you'll be delighted to answer any other questions, won't you? I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Keep them coming.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And ladies, I'll let you finish.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Paul, for moderating and for picking out
thank you so much.
some really lovely questions. And thank you, everyone, for coming to this talk. Don't forget, we do these Tuesdays and Fridays. So next Friday, we've got Kale and Emilio with The Rules Are Meant to Be Broken, which I think is quite a nice little rebellious, title in itself.
Absolutely.
So yes, do come to that one and have fun sketching.
And these will all be up on YouTube eventually, so feel free to go back and have a watch or get some sketching techniques.
Lovely.
Wonderful. And the last thing to say is I've just posted in our comments the web link to the Art of Light presentation that was given last week, so people will be able to go and have a watch it there if you didn't see it before, and we will again put that on our blog as well.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Cool.
Lovely. Great. Thanks
Thank you
everyone
very much,
for joining us. And see you Friday.
See you Friday, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.